data. But is this data is actually useful for data science? Is it labeled? Is it mineable? Is it available in a right format? Nobody has those answers to it because nobody actually know what kind of data to be captured till long period of time. And many of the organizations I go in the beginning, first few months of my time is just goes in organizing and capturing the data. Is this data is actually useful for data science? Is it labeled? Is it the product, as I said, available in a right multiple nobody has those answers in asking that what should I give it to data science? What kind of data to be captured? This looks like an engineering problem. So what is long the period of time? And many of the organizations I go in the beginning, are able to figure out certain analytics problem or engineering problem, organizing and understanding. Is this data is actually useful for data science? Is it they are not able to figure it out? What as I said, available in a right multiple nobody has those answers asking that what nobody should I give it to data science? What is kind of data to be captured over a period of time comes and for long period of time. And many of the organizations I go, they are able to figure out few months of my time or these are organizing have understanding. Is this data is actually useful for structure and organization? You could actually solve it out, but these are the main problem every organization faces. Let's talk about one of the biggest things that how would you, if you also built it, how would you do or measure that the data science that you implemented or the analytics that you implemented is actually working for you? One is in terms of algorithmic measurement, which is basically a data scientist or your analytics or your statistician is aware with it. They would come with precision, recall, RMSEs, and don't get fooled by knowing only one or two of these measurement and trying to apply it to everything. If you go to each individual algorithmic level, each algorithm has a different kind of matrix to benchmark it to know whether it is working or not. So be open as a leader, as a product manager, to understand from a data science why he is measuring certain algorithmic goals and what it actually gives you. But don't be fooled by always the algorithmic measurement also. You should ask in terms of your business goal that is that make my business faster in any needs? So what kind of metrics I would monitor if this algorithm or this investment is goes into building certain parts of the component or certain parts of the product? Is it making it better in terms of user experience, better in terms of overall look? The UIs are built over a period of time now with machine learning algorithms. So it looks better, people's user engagement goes, and is it makes cheaper? Like I rolled out a data science algorithm for Uber, but does it actually make it cheaper or does it actually make more utilization of the driver's time and thus in creating a better revenue or a cheaper expenses in terms of time and money? So all these need to be measured in terms of algorithm measurement and business measurement. It's very much important to have these business measurement in place, which is in many cases, in many organizations I see is missing. And let's talk about the most important part of that is hiring. We kind of over a period of time talks about that these are the data scientists, and this is extremely all wrong word. Let's imagine a situation that you are opening a tech organization. Do you said all I want is engineers? Is that the only knowledge is sufficient for you? Of course not. So you know over a period of time that you need UI engineers, you need backend engineers, you need data engineers if you are handling with the big data. So over a period of time, try to understand what each data scientist are or what are the kind of data scientists exist. Maybe your business is good enough to have only one or two statisticians. Maybe all your business need is required two machine learning engineers or two machine learning scientists. Or maybe for your business, you need an NLP guy, or for your business, you need none of them. You need a optimization guy who has done something else. But over a period of time, I realized that over a period of time, I'm almost down time, so I would, yeah, would like to wrap it up. So over a period of time, that I realized that most of the guys uh, uh, think that they are just the same, and anybody who knows deep learning is what you want, which is the silver bullet. This is not exactly true, and that is one of the reason the many of the projects actually fail. And then you need to also figure it out, what is the job of a data engineer and how this they gel with the data scientist. If you want to hire an analytics professional, what would be his job would be, what is the job of analytics professional, and do you really need a data science product manager? Obviously this term is not much heard in India, but there is if you go and today search in US, many of the jobs, and some part of UK, you would actually find many of the organizations have started creating a what or set of people or a skill called data science product managers, who are data scientists moved to product managers. Do you also need a visualization engineer whose job is a very different? So you need to ask all these questions for your proper hiring and to build up an optimal team. Now I would like to take any questions.
Well, thank you, Sarit. I think, amazing examples. Many people have difficulty in understanding where this data science is applied, what are the real use cases, how does it impact customers or us. And I think you've taken, whole set of sectors, right from e-commerce, logistics, and including competitive intelligence. There are a lot of questions, I'm sure specific questions coming in around that. What I would suggest is, again, after this, I will show up that slide where people can scan and go to the LinkedIn thread where you can post, and hopefully you can address those specific questions there. But what I'm also seeing is a bunch of questions around the data science product manager, as you said, right? Data science manager are some very interesting questions that I'm seeing. So I'll just queue up one or two, three here. But actually, when I look at data science product managers, it's basically coming together of skills around business, product, applied data science, and all of these things, right? And I was doing a very interesting LinkedIn search yesterday to see how many people actually have a title called data science manager in the world and in India, right? It turns out about 5.3 million people in worldwide have this title already, right? And of course, no, I'm not saying that title means exactly what they're doing, but in India it's only 300,000, whereas in data scientist title in India is on about 66K. So what makes me realize is there's a huge it looks like data science manager is one of the most sought after roles, or at least there is so much opportunity for people to go in, right? So the question that I have, summarizing what other people are asking here is number one, and you can answer this as soon as the poll ends. I think we want to get perspective from the audience as well. Is somebody with not much of technical knowledge or understanding or software knowledge, can they become data science manager? Now, it'll be helpful if you throw some light on some specific roles around data, responsibilities around data science manager, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. The most familiar example I will give is basically the same example when you talk about or train about a product manager, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the product managers, like, and try to see the responsibility of a product manager is basically to interact between the business and the technical team, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the responsibility. Obviously, the other responsibility is like subbing about the market, knowing a product features that would suit to a particular market, and finding the optimal product, competitive analysis, and so on. But one of the major or day-to-day job about a product manager is a gap between engineering and the business. So similarly, the same gap that is need to be filled up by a product data science product manager. And the data science project manager basically have quite a bit of understanding about data science. Don't need to understand to a level a data scientist does, right? Which is this each algorithm and what, but to need an overall understanding of how can even I would write a spec about a data science product that is a part of my overall product,
Hmm.
right? And how would I integrate it into a product that I'm releasing, and what features that need to be built
Hmm.
upon. So
Hmm.
a fair amount of data science knowledge is required, a fair amount of analytics knowledge is required,
Hmm.
along with your technical skill and other managerial skill that is required to achieve a
Hmm.
data science product management.
Hmm.
So far, I see most of the data science product managers that I've really, I mean, is principal data scientist then moving to a data science product manager, but it is not necessary because you actually don't need to understand deep level of algorithms to
Hmm.
be a data science product manager,
So,
but
so
you need
that
to understand the possibilities.
great. So that brings up a next follow up. Again, there are five folks who have asked a very similar question, and I would ask the team to now bring up a poll around, what kind of specific skill set. Now that you brought up skill sets, I think it'll be good to see what are the skill sets that you would look for, let's say, in a hiring and data science manager. Now, while the poll happens, Sarit, I think I actually found the circle of eternal unhappiness that you came up with very fascinating and interesting. And maybe you can correct me if my understanding of this is correct. The person who plays this data science manager role is somebody who orchestrates between every stakeholder that you showed, right from the management, right from the data scientist, right from engineering and the product. So is it fair to say that the primary responsibility of this data science manager is become an orchestrator with these different stakeholders in the context of a data science project?
Exactly, Sai. So that's exactly the point of view. Is the guy who actually manages that. A data science product manager is basically, or manager, what we call, is basically going to orchestrate between these four stakeholders
Hmm.
to make understand the management team that what are the data science projects you can invest in, how you can invest in, and what you're going to achieve out of it, because it's
Hmm.
at the end of the day it's an investment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at the same time, he has need to have a very good product understanding, because at the end of the day that's the most important component of that. Okay.
Hmm.
uh, at the same time, you need quite a fair bit of engineering understanding
Hmm.
to play this engineering and data science understanding to play it, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Or actually come to a point that you could actually write specs about it to
Hmm.
being a part of the product, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I can see this poll. Of course, data analysis is not that important, but data business understanding is very much important. You
Hmm.
expect your analyst or you expect your data science guys to do analysis for you.
Hmm.
Is probably not the most important thing out of it, but you need to understand your business very much, or your goals about your business very much. Okay.
Hmm.
You understanding big data and engineering is not that important, in a sense that, because if you have a data science that does big data science, then you obviously have a big data science big data engineers available, right? And you don't need to
Great.
go to nitty gritty part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. I think that
You need to
that's
understand that in big.
no, no, that I think that provides a lot of clarity. So one last question before we close this. The question is from Pratul, and I think he also wins the best question award for today. I think maybe you want to take that question. Is
Congratulations.
why is data scientist pay, variable pay, not linked to the top line or bottom line of the business? Now, I didn't know that data science scientists actually had variable pay, but it looks like now Pratul seems to wonder why are these people's pay not linked to top line or bottom line? So
Well,
that's a
that's a
yeah.
wonderful
I
question.
think that definitely wins the best question award. So go ahead.
Okay. That's to answer your Atul, is in many sciences it's a gap between the leadership or the management to understand the contribution of the data science to actual thing. It's very hard to measure in that sense.
Yeah.
So in many organizations, people look at it as in terms of engineer, like similar to our engineering resources. or technical resources and doesn't actually attribute to the contribution. But the statement is not completely true. If you go to today Microsoft, and many of my friends who works there, your pay is actually attached to your variable pay is actually attached to the top line and bottom line. One of the
Nice.
sectors in marketing and one of the sectors in ad tech, it has been long established, because ad tech is one of the reason for me like 10 years back to move to the ad tech sector as a data scientist was the precisely the same reason, that the data science impact on a real time ad exchange or real time is so much visible that with your contribution and without your contribution the ROI is pretty much very tied
Okay.
to it, and that actually earns you a good perks on and above your
So
salary.
that's very fascinating. I think so. Companies are already trying to tie in the ROIs of businesses to the variable pay, which is
Yes,
very
only
nice.
some of the companies at
Some,
this point of time, I would say,
which
but it
also
is
I would
not a
say
unknown
reflects,
phenomenon.
which also I would say reflects on the company's emphasis and value that they are placing on that role, the importance of that role, right? So, if you will, I'm sure many other companies will start picking this up too, just like, but more progressive companies are a little ahead. Awesome. I think, I'm sure this is such a topic that we can go on for another hour easily. But thank you so much, Sarit, for joining us and providing those excellent insights. For people, there what you see on the screen, feel free to scan, and that's the place where you go ahead and add your questions. As I said, Pratul wins the award for the today, and he will definitely get the gift on its way. And I would like to just quickly show what the leaderboard looks like. I hope you can see my screen. This, when you click on that link, this is the leaderboard, and there are a couple of actions. There's some amazing, people are already taking those actions, getting it. So Ramya, it looks like you win the leaderboard award today. Keep that going, and thank you so much, Sarit, once again. So over to you, Sonal. Before folks, I would like to just mention that before you head off to grab your lunch after what Sarit said, the next session is on a very interesting topic, Generation Z, and its impact or influence on what we're going to build on enterprise SaaS applications. So we'll take a few minutes break, but Sonal, if you have any announcements, feel free to do that now.
Thank you, Sai. Hi, everyone. I hope you had a great session. Please share your feedback by taking the poll on your screen now. Here's the feedback.
Sonal, we have Nivedita with us now.
Sure. Thank you, everyone. While we get set for our next session with Nivedita, we'll feel free to take a break of 5 minutes and we'll be starting soon. Hi, Nivedita.
Nivedita, hope you can hear us. Oh, please, could you please unmute Nivedita and make her host?
Just give me a minute.
Sure.
Done.
Great.
Hi, Nivedita. Can you hear me now?
Can I start the camera?
Sure.
Is it too dark or can you see me?
Would you have a little bit more light?
Sure. Hold on. Is that better? Or is it still dark? Today,
It's a little
The one
dark.
before was better.
the one before was better? Okay. Yeah, somehow today is a gray day. The lights are on. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sure. That's good. If you come closer, it's really good.
Okay.
Perfect. Nivedita, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
It's been a pleasure to host you the last time, and we're really looking forward for your session tonight. We will start pretty soon. Um, we've just given a 5 minute break to everybody, and Sai will be here with us soon.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and I have my questions also in front of me, and then whatever Sai asks, that'd be good.
Perfect. Thank you.
So I've just muted myself. Let me know when you're ready. I'll unmute it, okay? On my end.
Sure. Hi everyone, a very warm welcome to all of you. Welcome to the Product Leadership Festival 2020. Before we start our second session of the day, I would like to welcome our host of the evening, Mr. Sai Satish Vedam. Sai is a senior faculty and an executive coach at Institute of Product Leadership. He was most recently the Director of Product Management at Oracle. Welcome, Sai. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Sonal. Excited to be back again. For those of you who are joining us for this session, welcome again. We have a pretty exciting session with and a very accomplished speaker in this area, right? Hello, Nivedita. Nice to see you.
Hey,
Hope
Sai,
you're
good
doing
to see
well.
you. Yeah.
So before we get to the topic and introduce you, I'd like to just go through a few announcements so that we make the best use of this session. There are several hundreds of people joined right now live throughout the country, and I want to just go through a few things here, right? So Product Leadership Festival is being conducted by Institute of Product Leadership. It's a 5-day festival with 2 hours each, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., so that folks who are working hard in this time and working from home, whose days have extended on both sides, morning and evening, can get some opportunity to join this at the end of the day or the evening here in India. And also I see several folks joining in from other countries. The theme of this festival is around career insights and products, data, and design. And it runs from yesterday. It started yesterday and goes up to May 2nd. Now, for those of you familiar with not familiar with IPL, Institute of Product Leadership, this is essentially an institute that started in 2012. India's first business school for technology managers, helping them accelerate their career transitions in product leadership, right? So the institute designs and creates offerings like Executive MBA, which is an accredited degree program by UGC in India, and short-term certification programs around product management, including the recently launched digital programs called Flex Series, right, which provides guided digital learning, especially exclusively focused on helping people transition in their careers into products and product roles. Now, over many years, IPL has been building an ecosystem of folks in product, right, in this country. And a couple of thousand folks have passed through the various programs, a very strong alumni network, who network, who help each other and contribute to enriching the ecosystem here. So in that spirit, May 2nd is an open conference day where every alumni, and in fact, not just alumni, but every one of you who's joining here can submit a topic for becoming a speaker. And as soon as you submit that on the web page, and you see a QR code in front of you. If you take out your mobile phones right now and scan the QR code, it will take you to a web page which shows all the topics and speakers that have already submitted their topics to talk about. So go ahead and vote for your favorite topics or even favorite speakers if you want. And let's say if the speaker gets shortlisted to speak on that day, you get an amazing gift, right? So go ahead right now, take out your phone and scan that, and it'll quickly take you to that website, right? So that's one. And today, before I get to introducing Nivedita, a couple of more things. Here is another QR code you can scan, and this takes you directly to LinkedIn, where the thread for this discussion is created. Feel free to go and add your questions there. There is a team that is monitoring those questions, and I will try to summarize them here in our conversation. And the best question wins an award again, right? Now, the other advantage of asking this question in LinkedIn is that, Nivedita or other folks can actually respond to you even after this session is over. So if you ask your questions in this Q&A, in the Zoom Q&A, while we'll still try to monitor and get that, once the session ends, the questions are lost, and the experts and faculty won't be able to answer those things, right? So go ahead and use that in the LinkedIn thread. We've seen tremendous responses in the past sessions, so that's a good way to keep the conversation going. And finally, we try to make this a little bit fun. So there is something called a leaderboard, and I'll show you at the end of what the leaderboard is. But right now, go ahead and click on that link, or the link will be posted. Now here, there are small set of activities for each of you to do, right? Very simple ones. It takes about a minute or so. And based on that, there are some points that are assigned to you. And whoever is on the top of the leaderboard get an exclusive one-on-one with a senior executive, industry executive for a career counseling session, right? And it's very difficult to bring these people to the table. So this is your opportunity. Please go ahead and take that action, right? So with that, I want to start into the session. I'm pretty excited about this one because more importantly, I'm curious to know, why is this Gen Z so special? And I'm of course curious to know about future of work as well, given the current circumstances. Let me introduce our speaker today. We're going to have a conversation. It's not a presentation. So hopefully we'll keep this engaged. We'll keep all of you engaged. Nivedita Oja is a senior director of product management at Citrix. She's been a product strategy advisor for C-level executives, and she's got an amazing track record working with cross-functional teams in coming up with and even executing very innovative and profit generating products, right? So she's worked both for Fortune 500 companies as well as venture backed companies. And I'm sure right now, thank you for joining us from the US, Nivedita. And you've worked across the continents, globe, if you will, Europe, South America, and Asia. Very happy to have you here and share with us your insights on the topic of future of work and Gen Z, and especially how Gen Z will influence building of enterprise SaaS applications, right? So my background is SaaS applications for enterprises, so I'm more keen than I'm sure to learn a few insights from you. But before we get into the conversation, I want to a little understand the quote that we asked you. What is your favorite quote? One of the favorite quotes that you have, and you quoted a pretty interesting one I wrote of Nelson Mandela, right? There is no passion to be found playing small, in settling for a life that is less than the one that you're capable of living. Now, can you help us peel that very profound quote that seemed to have influenced you a bit?
Absolutely. Thank you first for giving me this opportunity. Actually, I heard from someone a similar quote, which this explains this one even better. When we start our careers, we have some aspirations and inspiration, and we want to go in a certain direction. However, during this path that we chart, there will be folks who will try to dissuade us, or who will try to unknowingly put barriers around us. And the point that I'm trying to make is, nobody can define who I am or who you are. It's up for us to define who we are. And so it's for us to open the doors that we want to open. And let's not contain all the abilities that we have and believe in somebody else telling us that we can or cannot do. So that's why this quote from Nelson Mandela actually really resonates, because it's up to us what path we want to chart. It is we all have capabilities that is infinite, and we should make use of our capabilities and just go and think big and just live that dream and go get it done. That's the whole point.
Amazing. I think Nelson Mandela, probably distilled that, his lifetime contributions into that quote, it seems like to me, right? So in that context, I think many folks are currently, I'm sure, what is going on, a big part of their thinking is around COVID situation, right?
Yes.
Now I think what I would like to do is take a poll of the audience in terms of what they are thinking about whether their career would be impacted. A lot of stuff going on, both positive and negative, as much as we try to stay positive. So maybe a poll will help us understand perspectives from the audience today on what is the impact of COVID on their careers, right? So while the audience gives their view on it, I think we will launch into the specifics of the discussion today.
Sure. But it's interesting to see.
I know it's
and I can totally understand what's going on, and I can really this whole fear resonates.
Yeah.
And all I'm going to say is that in my career, this is the third time I'm seeing a downturn.
Hmm.
Actually, the first downturn, I just started my career. So the first one that I saw. And every time it seems, oh, this is small, or this is big, or this is worst. Everyone is unique.
Yeah.
And it is, you have to stay positive. You have to find what I've been trying to say to everybody: figure out what's the one good act you can do for the day,
Hmm.
and use that to propel your day and be positive, because these are difficult times and
Yeah.
everybody is going through a tough time. So if you can do one act of goodness for
Yeah.
that day and
Yeah.
start the day, it will change the way you think.
Great advice. I think that's easily actionable, simple and actionable. That can do it. Looks like we have a lot more optimistic people on the call today, which is a great thing to have. So getting into it, I think the world is of course changing at a dizzying pace, right? I mean, there are way too many things that have been happening even before COVID, right? So in terms of the impact that's having on economy, jobs, flow of talent, things like globalization, economy, artificial intelligence, robotics, and now of course COVID, right? But more in our context, in terms of products, in the world of products,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
I think two topics, and hence the genesis of these topics, right? How do you see the future of the work and workforce, right? So we'll start with what do we even mean by a future of work? Now, I'm completely mystified by this Gen Z, for one
Mhm.
reason, that we are run out of alphabets now. I don't know what to do.
I
Uh,
agree.
but you should just demystify this Gen Z, especially for us Indians, who we've heard baby boomers, millennials, X, Y, Z. So and why, and we'll get into that, right? But we'll start with let's say, how do you see a future of work being different from what it is today?
So actually, let's step back a little bit.
Hmm.
Digital transformation was happening,
Hmm.
and as I started really looking into what does digital transformation really mean, work had changed the way we anticipated it to be. What does that
Hmm.
mean? Also, is not everybody is always going to an office.
Hmm.
Uh, let's take sales teams, especially in enterprise. Sales teams can be in, so for in an Indian scenario, the headquarter could be in Bangalore for
Hmm.
Infosys or for Wipro. However, they need to have a sales team, whether it's in Colorado, whether it's in California, whether it's in Japan. So now, how do you stay connected with these teams that are located across the globe? You are still sharing your product roadmap with them. You're still sharing your product insight. You, as a product manager, are trying to get more data on what the customer is thinking as the future, so that you can formulate your product roadmap, or you can formulate the next innovation. So teams have been changing quite significantly for quite some time.
Hmm.
And then more and more, what's happening is, previously we used to call it offshoring to some country. Actually, it's no longer an offshoring. We are at a certain stage in our economy and our evolution of just technology and product, that we need to have talent. And talent means it's not just
Global.
about knowing a product, it is also, and a technology, it's understanding the market, it's understanding the nuances of how customers behave. It's what I had in a, if you remember, a couple of months ago when I did my session on design thinking, I talked about human centric. At
Hmm.
the end of the day, who's using the product? It's not animals,
Hmm.
it's we are using the product.
Hmm.
We're humans.
Yep.
So it's very important to understand how lifestyle, how working condition, uh, personas basically are different in every country, in every place. And there are certain norms, local norms. So all of this becomes very important when you're defining your workflows, you're defining your workplace. And so digitalization and future of work is now about talent. It is
Hmm.
about understanding the personas. It is being aware and empathizing with what is needed for making your work more engaging and more productive.
Hmm. I think when you say that at the end of it, there is a human, right? So many of us get caught into B2C product, B2B product, but at the end of it, in every thing, there is a B2H, right? There is
Yes,
a human at the end of it. And essentially looking at that, understanding that human, understanding that person, understanding the pain points and challenges is, you're saying, is going to be even more important than what it has been before, right? So, uh,
absolutely.
and
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 let's
and
ask, I mean, if you want to take a poll, how many of us are using only a single device?
hmm,
Hardly.
hmm.
All of us are on multiple devices on a regular basis, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, at least a laptop on a phone, especially in a technology space. And
yeah,
why technology? You talk to somebody in finance, they do that. You talk to verticals, you talk to retail. Today, everybody is minimum using at least two devices in the knowledge world.
yeah.
Now, how do you interact? Because you're shifting from one device to the other.
Right.
I could be on a LinkedIn on my mobile, and then very second, I need to respond to somebody, but it's on a laptop or a tablet. So this whole conversion of so many devices needs to happen very seamlessly, very fluid. So it doesn't matter what age, what generation I am
Mm.
in. I need to make this whole interaction very seamless, very easy. Like recently, I just talked about, whether I'm on a Zoom on my phone, whether I'm a Zoom on my laptop or on my tablet, it's got to work impeccably.
Yeah,
I've got to be able to see you, Sai, on the other
yeah,
side and
yeah.
have a conversation with you.
So in a way, you're saying that, remote working, it doesn't matter where the person comes from, where the person lives, what, which part of the world, which of course we are seeing this more and more. Now, I'm sure there are triggers in a market and in our country, in the world right now, that are accelerating that, right? So, and that's one part of what you call as future of work. Are there any other elements of what you see dramatically being different, or at least even incrementally being different in a few years from now? And I'm assuming we are talking in the context mostly about knowledge workers, or are they applicable to other sectors as well, other ways of work?
So, a very interesting point. So, when I was doing this research for Citrix specifically, this is almost now 18 months ago.
Hmm.
So the world had not changed so rapidly. We knew that certain things were changing.
Hmm.
So gig economy was happening. We
Yeah.
all know when Uber drivers came, or when somebody's putting Airbnb homes. That's a kind of gig economy.
Yeah.
So if you look at them, they're really not knowledge workers. Most of them are, if you talk about their task workers. Having said that, every Uber driver, every Ola driver, whatever, has a mobile device.
Mhm.
So the point over here is it's no longer task or knowledge worker. There used to be a device, uh, digital divide, which I
Hmm.
call the
Hmm.
device divide.
Hmm.
That is fading away.
Hmm.
Yeah, you maybe the Ola driver may not have the smartest iPhone that you have. It
Hmm.
doesn't matter. However, they are connected,
Yep.
and that is the big point. And the
Yep.
fact that they're connected, they can go today, they can drive, they know where to
Hmm.
pick up. It's based on a text, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So the digital divide is reducing.
Sure.
So it doesn't matter whether you're a task worker or a knowledge worker. It's only
That's
time. Yeah, go ahead, Sai.
That's a very interesting point. I think the access to devices, access to connectivity, access to cheap data packs, like in companies that offered in India, brought millions of people online, and as a result, the need and demand for services and even applications. So segueing into applications of what kind of applications and what does that even mean for the applications that companies are building for these people. So what's your perspective on that?
So that's where. So before I talk about application, I just want to say that if you saw in India, especially WhatsApp,
Yeah.
has become a very, very formidable application. Whether I need to call my doctor
Yeah.
and quickly check, I will give you an interesting story with WhatsApp. So about 18 months ago, almost 2 years ago, I lost my dad. So that period where I was with him, and I was in India, in Bombay, he suddenly had fibrosis of his lungs, and there was a constant need for sending, all his reports to the doctor. I know that at times, somebody will say, "Why would you use, WhatsApp?" But we were in a really short time, where some days he was getting like a panic attack, and so sending reports, and instead of really walking the doctor through the report. When I sent it through WhatsApp, the doctor would call and say, oh, just administer this, or just check this and let me know,
Yeah.
or watch his, something right now. Also, if you think about it, his symptoms were not very different from what's happening with some of the COVID respiratory, respiratory issues with COVID patients. So if you notice, they're being asked to have a oxygen monitor. It was the
Yeah.
same thing. And so doctors may not be able to visit you because of this condition. However, telemedicine has become a big thing.
Yeah.
Recently, when I was, so as part of staying at home, we're all saying, but we need to be healthy, we need to be focused on our health and keep our immune system high. I went for a bike ride, and for whatever reason, my bicycle got stuck on train tracks and I fell down and I had a mild concussion. So during that time, I was not going to go to the hospital or see the doctor. I just called her and we did a quick telemedicine. She sent a text message. We got on a video chat. She saw me, saw the bruises, and it was gone. So the world is changing every day. So applications are changing also every day. And I think communication with a device for everybody is happening. It doesn't matter whether you're a task worker or a knowledge worker. So in terms of apps, your apps are all about, if you look at enterprise space, more and more collaboration, more distributed teams. So the way it's going to be, it's no longer going to be, there are some companies that I'm advising, it's no longer going to be in the way like Sai and Niveta come together to review some document. And so for Sai, it's 9 p.m. in India, whereas it's 7 a.m., which is, if you think about it, we're both working at extreme hours to try to fit in just to have the conversation.
Yeah.
Versus now they're building software where Sai can go in, put in his comments, and Sai doesn't need to be online when I'm online, and I could start reviewing those comments and putting my comments back on it. And we're just collaborating. And if it's desperate, where I'm like, Sai, I think this coding is totally wrong, or I'm confused, that's when we come together, we get ourselves on a Zoom. However, there is just a written collaboration where you and I don't have to brainstorm. We're going to start seeing folks not wanting to always come on these odd hours trying to fit each other's schedule. So there are companies, it's called Loop, they're building some cool tools for distributed teams. So you are seeing, and all of this was happening even before COVID. It's just that with COVID, it's
the acceleration. Yeah, amazing. Yeah. Now, please demystify this Gen Z for us, right? I mean, the only thing that I know is they are digital natives, but often we have a very disparaging view of digital natives in this country. But I'm not one of them, but I'm sure it's a fascinating segment to look at. But please go ahead and give us your perspectives on Gen Z, and then why we should pay attention to this particular set of folks who are coming in now into workforce, especially.
Absolutely. So let's go back first to generations. In India, it doesn't match so much, but it does match a little bit. So it's mainly more of a Western world. So you had the baby boomers, these are the 60s. Then you had the Gen X, which is a very small sliver, both in India and in the most of the West. Then there was the millennials that came after that. And most of the millennials are what they call the social media, group with all the Facebook and Twitters. That's where that generation. And then the ones that are what I call is mainly Gen Xers kids, and that's the Gen Z. Now, if you think about their behaviors and pattern, most of them were born after the first recession. After 2002. I mean, when I mean first recession in my life. Okay. I'm sorry.
Not the 1914 one. Yeah.
Exactly.
1997 one you're talking about.
Yeah, the first recession of an adult life for me, okay, when I started working. So they are the first generation that started, they were born after 2002. And so they started their life, they were very young. And then when they were about 8 or 10, they experienced the other second recession. That was the big recession of 2008. Yeah. So these kids are aware of life is not that rosy all the time from a very young age. Having said that, they're also were born literally with a mobile device in their hand. So for them, it's like I say, the way we grew up with a home phone, it's literally like that. They grew up with a phone now in their hand. It's a different, it was landline versus now my personal.
It just happens to be a phone. It's everything else more than that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's a little difference. The landline, if you think about it, was a community device.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, stood in the house. Every member in the house could use it. You made a call, and that's it. It's only a communication device.
Yeah.
This one is now a personal device. It's no longer collaboration. Okay, it's my personal.
Yeah.
I've got everything that relates to my persona, my behaviors, my attributes. So my device is not going to look any close to your device.
It expresses the individuality of that person.
Exactly. So that is number one. Then the way I use it is very different. Okay. And also, when you think about it, somebody will say, you know what, I don't like iPhone. I want a Samsung device, or I want whatever other Android device is there. So Lenovo. So it's, everybody has also a preference of how the device looks and feels. Yeah. So it is this whole, it's really my personality is coming on that device. So I'm extending that.
In that perspective, in that context, do you think that there are habits that are very different of this generation, that Generation Z, than the previous ones using the devices?
Absolutely. Because also think of it. Do they really know about floppy disks? No. Do they need to know about that? No. I still remember verbatim floppies. I used to put it, store my software.
I'm pretty sure half of our audience wouldn't know this, by the way. I'm just
if they are millennials and Gen Zs, probably they don't. Yeah. Exactly. So the whole concept of floppy disk is out, but that's where I started writing or learning whatever I had to, right? Now these kids know everything is, to them, storage is not is not an issue. For us, I grew up where storage was an issue. So that's number one.
Sure.
Number two is also a very simple application difference, which started with Google, and now I see even Office 365 has put it. So before I tell you what that difference is, I will tell you a little story.
I'm curious.
So my sister works at a hospital, and she has an intern come in who's a Gen Z or millennial at that border. And the kid is constantly putting in the data, and then comes back next day, puts in the data. And then my sister's noting there's some frustration on the third day. And she's like, what's going on? She's like, every day I come in and I put in the data, and the data is gone. Every day I come in, I put in the data is gone. So she goes, says, there's something called save button.
I was gonna.
So here's the thing: working with Google and G Suite, they're so used to Autosave.
No save.
That's the notion for them.
I think it's a brilliant example. Absolutely, yeah.
And you think about it, it is the most easiest thing that should happen. And I want to now, even when I'm sometimes working on Office 365, if it is the SaaS version of it, I'm glad that it's autosave. But if I'm not on the SaaS version and I'm working on the one that's on my device, I have to go thinking, oh, I've got to save it. Whereas when I'm working with Google Suite, I'm not saving. It's just all automatically saved. So it really made a simple automatic save has made our life so much easier. So these behaviors.
I think there are several such examples that one can think of on this, and I'm sure that is getting reinforced, or rather, they're used to some very popular consumer applications that on the devices, right? I'm pretty sure all of these folks are on some weird social networks that most of us are not on, including TikToks and whatnot. And that experiences, those design, those stuff is now going to carry forward into enterprise applications. So does that mean that we need to now start thinking enterprise applications from a consumer experience perspective, which used to be quite different, right? And
so that is where what I call the consumerization of enterprise application. And so this generation is helping us really simplify the applications, because when they come to the workforce, they're not interested in using the legacy applications that we are being
Yeah.
used to.
Yeah.
And if you notice, whether it's Adobe, whether it's Salesforce, all the, I mean, though they were built in cloud, Salesforce specifically, everybody is changing the experience part of how they interact, how, so that's why the whole concept of bots, coming into applications, messaging. If you think about Facebook, now that Facebook has launched Facebook Workplace,
Yeah.
bringing elements of that consumerization in enterprise. You will see there is notifications which started from a mobile device is now becoming a part of every enterprise. In Citrix, we're building a product called the Intelligent Workspace, and it's to reduce all this multiple transitioning from one app to the other app, because go to an email, you get an email, you click on that, from there it goes to Ariba or Workday. We're reducing all that approvals and multiple workflows by simple notification.
Right.
So notification comes from this generation, this use cases that is enabling all these changes in enterprise. So it's really human centric.
So there are a few things that you touched upon, right? So one is taking certain things for granted because that's how they started experiencing the applications, right? So one example that you said is storage is never a concern anymore, right? I can take as many pictures as I want, videos as I want, and there is enough storage on the devices to do that. The other example that you brought in is messaging, right? So they are so used to messaging that now embedding that capabilities into enterprise applications, you're saying is a very important consideration, and many apps are already doing that, right? And the third one, of course, constantly being able to be notified, right? So I need to know what's going on, in the know of things, right? So now, given, I'm sure there are a lot of this such things in terms of their expectations or behaviors or habits, right? Now, how do I, let's say, how does a product manager or a business need to start thinking in terms of what kind of approach do we take to bring these into the products that we are building?
So this is a great question, and this is not just for this topic. And I say this: every product manager needs to always keep the antenna up every time, and observing and observation is very critical. So you need to always observe how a certain generation or how certain folks are working. And for example, especially parents and kids, we always kind of try to say, oh, this is how I did it in my time, and you're not doing it right. Instead of that, just go and ask them curiously, which I do very often. I ask my 14-year-old nieces, I want to know, what applications are you using? And she'll be like,
why do you want to know? Exactly.
And I said, no, I want to see what you're doing at school. And then one day she sits with me and shows.
Okay.
No, she shows me. And it's very different from my world. And so now suddenly I see this app called Canvan is become the big go-to application, because she says at school I need to build leadership products, which are leaflets, flyers to announce. And she takes the mobile device and she's sitting and quickly devices a whole leaflet for me in 15 seconds, literally. Pops in words, puts a video from TikTok and everything. And it looks like no better than any PDF document that you would have actually done on a laptop. And that's what you need to start observing, how they're using the device. Because when you will create these applications in the enterprise space, now you've got to start thinking in a different way. For the baby boomers or for the Gen Xers, we started from the laptop or a PC. We didn't even have, PC it was mainly. We didn't have laptop.
Yep.
Okay. And then for the baby boomers, and then we came to laptops. Now, for these kids of this generation, it starts on the mobile. So it's mobile first.
Yep.
How do you now watch? So it's very key to observe what they're doing. Also do focus group study constantly. Don't push them away that, oh, this is not how it's done. Go
So,
the other way.
absolutely. So one thing is, you're saying, irrespective of any of these things, a good product manager should, constantly keep observing the environment, users, and learning and seeing why they're doing it. But even more so now, because there is quite a bit of change in behaviors and expectations from this Gen
Yes.
Z. Now,
Yeah.
how does this reflect, let's say, in terms, we touched upon few things, but are there any specific areas of functionality or features that that exist in the product today, most of the products, but are going to get more highlighted or spotlight on? Are there any specific things like that?
So, one thing I will say,
Mm,
especially as an enterprise application developer, we as companies are always concerned about security.
mm,
Yeah.
mm, mm.
So security on the back end, security on the front end, and especially on applications where it's not just about putting an email, it's multi-factor, biometrics, all kinds
Yeah,
of things to do,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
If I show you my product, even at Citrix, which I started 4 years ago, versus the
Mm,
product we are looking to, there are significant changes.
mm,
And when I mean changes is because we were more secure, we are more security driven. We also made the app initially look like I put in an email, then it flips into something else, then I'm asked for some
mm,
other
mm.
attribution. Again, it flips. The
It's
flips were
just,
on and on and on.
yeah, yeah.
You give that kind of a flip to a Gen Z,
Mm,
you've lost them. They
mm,
will never, and if they had their way, they'll never use the product.
mm,
So now you've got to streamline, and so the backend integration of that security has to become much more leaner, easier. So the example that I tell everybody, when you update your Macs, have you
mm.
noticed it starts updating and there's just a thin silver line that keeps on going?
Yeah.
Everything is happening on the back end. You really don't need to go typing. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
there are other applications where it's updates and then they will ask you after 15 seconds, oh, now you need to add this. Then
Mm,
there's a little bit more happening. Then I need to add. You just lost that whole experience part of it. You just made it absolutely difficult. And
mm,
what did you do? Oh, God, do I need to update this again? I don't want to do it. I
mm.
just, and I've even had cases where, certain old apps folks would say, do I really need to do a version control now? Because every time I do a version control, you take me 45 minutes and I'm locked out,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that you security privacy is going to continue,
Mm,
and this generation doesn't care about it.
mm,
However, we need to keep the check and balance. So we've
mm.
got to find a balance between how that
But
can happen.
they're the ones, I believe, are going to make us more accountable than the previous
Yes,
generations.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
They
Yeah,
may not care if you explicitly ask them, would you trade your privacy for comfort and convenience? The answer most probably is going to be a resounding yes. But then when something goes wrong, they are the ones that are going to hold us accountable. So it's all the
absolutely,
more important for enterprises to take that even more seriously now, right?
absolutely.
And I think, this notion of making it seamless and also rapidly changing, iterating along the way, is not going to be practical for products that are not delivered through cloud, right?
Mhm.
So how do you see SaaS being the key motivator for all these things, or rather SaaS being the best way to do this, if you will?
In my opinion, actually, SaaS makes it easier, and SaaS is a driver because when
Mm,
you think about your, especially a software scenario, our sprint levels, we're no longer doing a waterfall, right? We're
yeah,
all agile.
yeah,
So when you're in agile, you're talking about 2 to 3 weeks of sprint.
right.
And now also, and it's not just this generation, anybody now who's been using some of the consumer applications, let's
Mm,
say whether it's WhatsApp or LinkedIn, there are certain freshness everybody's
right.
expecting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every time Android or iOS updates the user experience, you're expecting that the apps also upgrade themselves to fit in the new user experience.
Mm, mm,
Sometimes, of course, some things may not work. However, the whole game and point is to make it easier and get more traction on those
mm,
applications.
mm,
So with the SaaS world, it just helps you to iterate faster. It helps you to make changes faster. Also, if a function doesn't work, because you can do a beta launch in a SaaS world
Yeah,
through
and then
tools like Launch Darkly. If it doesn't work, you can scrap it off faster.
yeah, right.
And if it works,
And
you test.
do you think the enterprises are taking this seriously and they are ready to make these changes? Because sometimes, not sometimes, I believe that most of the time, such kind of mandates have to be top-down driven, right? From a strategy driven as opposed to individual teams making those decisions. Do you think enterprises are gearing up to this fact and or not enough?
So this is very interesting and important question. The reason why. So in the software world, when we are in Silicon Valley, yes, we're all moving. Everybody's moving to cloud because implementations are faster, rollouts are faster, all of that. And if you see any new age startup that's being launched, it's all on cloud. It's all SaaS. Nobody's going on-prem. Where the challenge was are the older legacy companies, right? Somebody in automotive, somebody in heavy engineering or financial banking. Over there also with COVID, actually COVID has accelerated moving to cloud. Because when you're on-prem, you're not able to get into this remote workforce. You cannot expand and grow fast and multiply. However, if you're on cloud, it's
you have constraints on your delivery channels, right? Your sales force, your partner ecosystem, and so SaaS might alleviate some of those things. Is what
it is. In fact, suddenly we're seeing the cloud uptake is a lot more faster because now folks who who are always in the office have mandatorily have to and so it's important that you start making sure that you are you're scaling fast. That's the big point.
Okay. No, so that's interesting. So now I think, many of the product leaders in companies hopefully are taking notice of this and trying to put together strategies in place. And suddenly when you have to accelerate this, given current circumstances and also with the Gen Z coming into the workforce, are there any additional skill sets that you believe the product role people, especially product managers or senior in portfolio level managers, right? Product portfolio level managers need to start thinking about and building teams, building the skill sets within the teams around?
So I don't know about teams. Like I said, as a PM, you've got to be observant. As a PM, you want to be data driven. As a PM, you want to be very much aware of what's happening in the technology. You want to be on the pulse of what trends are happening and changes are happening. So data, of course, is going to be even more important. And having a data science, somebody understanding data science in terms of what are the trends, what are the changes, what is it with machine learning we can do, all of that, how to add more intelligence into the product is going to be critical. I mean, sometimes, so here's a two-edged sword. The two-edged sword from my conversation with the Gen Z is, I don't mind the intelligence. However, do not make it such a strong part of the product that I have to use the intelligence. I need to have the ability to opt in and opt out of that intelligence.
Okay, so that's fascinating because we are probably companies and products are thinking, how do I anticipate the next move of this person and provide it to them as opposed to them asking for it, which is in a way in alignment with the behaviors of this. But you're saying don't go overboard on that. They definitely want a control and saying that don't anticipate my needs based on your intelligence that you're building into these products.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the classic example they keep on saying is Gmail. So like if I've written, hi Sai, thank you for, and then
the
automatically starts
texting.
The predictive data starts coming, and that's where they said sometimes I'll take it, but sometimes I want to write something and you have no idea, and it's got nothing to do with the it's got something totally different. Maybe I want to say, Sai, I hope your mom is doing well.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Picking up because it's something else. So
providing that control is what you're saying. The balance needs to be.
Yes. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and many products, in fact there is a whole category of products called the area called product led growth, right? And
Yes.
which is now building ability to acquire new customers of the or users of that product and keep them engaged baked into the product itself, right? So we have an interesting session coming up in next 2 days around that. But that's a new skill. That's a skill that product managers need to start thinking differently, right? It's
Absolutely.
now baking in some aspects of marketing into that product itself. Yeah.
Yes, and marketing is very important in any way
Mm.
because when you build a product, let's say in an enterprise space, how am I going to reach my audience? How
Mm.
am I going to message? What is the value of that product that differentiates? For example, why is Slack different from Zoom?
Mm.
Both a collaboration,
Mm.
but it's very different, right?
Mm.
There's a and in my world today, working remote, I'm using both the tools, right?
Yeah.
I'm using Slack because I'm constantly in collaboration. Do I really need that much of email? I'm not so sure because I could really Slack and figure out, make changes very rapidly.
Yeah.
And Zoom is when I want to have a face to face the way we are having, or when I want to be in this kind of a scenario where I'm in a fireside chat. So every tool is very important
Mm.
for how I'm working. One other thing is during this whole shutdown period, I'm also discovering newer tools. I just came across a tool, like I told you. Loop is one, which is for distributed teams.
Mhm.
So you don't have to be online all the time, and you can still get access to all the right content.
Yeah.
Um, and then you have Mural, where
Mm.
I could do brainstorm
Yes.
together
Yeah.
using, I'm using digital sticky, and we used it. So there are so many new tools that are coming
Yeah.
which are enabling this remote workflow place. And so as a PN, I need to learn to use all these tools, or
Right.
at least have an understanding to kind of
So
being a product led.
absolutely. No, I think before, tools are very interesting and solving specific problems, but even having a context of, um, you know, a new way to approach things. Now,
Yeah.
once you understand how to do that, once you have the skill, I would call it as a skill because some of these need to be acquired and not going through some, website and reading a blog about it or watching a view. But I think working with practitioners, working with people who are doing it, gaining that expertise and experience is very important. And then, of course, there are these amazing tools that are coming up to say, oh, I need to do this. What is the best tool available? And get to that,
Mhm,
right? So
mhm.
on the skills part, it's important to get it from the right place, learn it from the right people, and all of that. But I have several people have asked me this question. I want your take on this. This is especially around mentoring and coaching, right? and
Uh,
and before you answer that, I would like a quick poll from the audience. I hope, just to check that they are not eating their dinners and forgotten us. But so do many people, I mean, what is the level of importance that some of you or many of you place on having a mentor or a coach to guide you through these transitions, right? Not just from being a product manager to now digital and start thinking and acquiring these skills, but even before that. So at least I personally benefited a lot from having some very good mentors. What's your take on this, Nivedita? What's the approach that you think people should take in getting some guidance?
So, seeing the poll, I'm very surprised that there is. Do you believe it says 49% said no?
Hmm.
I'm very surprised by that. My personal
No,
view
I mean
is,
the poll. I think the poll says, "Do you have access to quality mentors?"
oh, do you have access? Oh, I didn't see that.
Ah,
Okay. Do you have
yeah,
access? Sorry.
yeah.
Okay. So they don't have access.
Which
Okay.
is
So
not
that's,
surprising, by the way. I think this is representative of general,
yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So, having a mentor and a guide is extremely important.
Mm.
And so mentor and guides, just not for product, in general for your career, is very, very crucial to understand what transitions you want to make, what directions you want to go. And sometimes you may just decide, I just want to be in a flat line in my career
Mm.
and grow an expertise in that place. How do
Yeah.
you make those decisions? And how do you know when is the right time to from a engineer I want to become a data scientist, or from a product manager I want to get into more finance or operations. So it's very important to have somebody to bounce ideas to, somebody to get guidance, because I'm not saying that my experience is going to be the same as your. However, having had experiences, I have some understanding of what's happening or what's not happening, and I can guide you, because there are certain behaviors that are happening that kind of in a human mind is very similar behavior. And it's very important how to understand, gauge who you're dealing with, who your audience is. So how do you do all of that? It's important to have a mentor and a coach. Yeah.
So I think absolutely true, and I completely agree with everything that you said around mentors and things. With that, I think we are very close to the top of the hour. So I'd like to really thank you, Nivedita, for joining us and sharing those insights. But before we go, I just wanted to announce the award for the best coach, best question that we've had, right? So let me just see if I can bring that up. So folks have been asking many questions, by the way, Nivedita. Unfortunately, we are not able to take all of that within the hour. And, during, I was trying to see if I can cover those questions as well in our conversation, and we did most of them. But I would request you to later on go to that thread, on the LinkedIn thread, and if you can answer some of the questions that folks have asked, that will be very good, right? And really
Absolutely.
appreciate you doing that. So I think, based on many of these questions, to me at least, the best question goes, award goes to Anand Raghavan for asking a very similar question that we touched upon, right? We said, look, consumerization of enterprise applications is real. You're right. However, is it a strategy driven from top, or is it an IT driven? It doesn't seem like IT can lead these things, because it needs a transformation, both in terms of mindset, in terms of operationalizing it, and in terms of the kind of people that you need. So that's the question that gets the best question award. And then let me just quickly show folks where we are on the leaderboard. As I said, leaderboard is a place where you just go and take a couple of actions on that, and you see the leaderboard here, right? And the top of it, I see Vikas, Mish Vikas. You're top of the leaderboard right now, and you'll be getting a gift and actually a opportunity to have a mentor sit down with you, an executive mentor, and one-on-one conversation with you in your context of your career. So congratulations. And before we wrap up, some very exciting sessions tomorrow, especially around hiring. So we have future hiring practice, just like we talked about future of work going on. And we have future hiring practices, how hiring is changing very soon. And thanks for joining us today. Thank you again, Nivedita. Really appreciate
Thank you.
joining
I
us.
really appreciate this. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good day. Bye. And over to you, Sonal. And folks, before you drop off, take 30 seconds or 10 seconds really to provide the feedback poll that is going to show up right away on your screens. And over to you, Sonal. Thank you again.
Thank you, Sai. Thank you all of you for joining us today. We'll see you tomorrow again at 8 p.m. We have 2 amazing sessions upcoming tomorrow. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.